that accommodates poor people in our cities. More and more poor people are going to squat on other people's lands and somehow politically legitimate what they can do. And that the economy of the city, the value of the land, the length of their stay in the city are all going to play a very important role in who will get which kind of housing, which kind of amenities, and which kind of services. But for every large city in this country, there are 300 to 500 small towns which are completely ignored. And if you come to what we call the metros, not Bombay, but even now this is a slum in Pune, most of the houses look like this. They have been incrementally developed brick by people over 10 to 30 years. And in this particular, if any of you are going to Pune and you get in touch with me, I would really like you to go and see this place. The residents of this community, along with our network of women, challenged the municipality, which wanted to bring down all these houses so that under the JNNURM project, which is going to end this year, they could just rebuild all the houses in straight lines, which is the imagery of almost every architect that I know who works with municipalities. Straight lines, straight streets, little cubes, one room, some connection through which no water, no sanitation comes through. What these women did was they said that in every settlement, there are about 30 to 40% houses which are like this, which are brick and mortar, and the rest are houses like this. And they said, why don't we use government subsidies to support houses like this to be improved? This is what the inside of some of the brick houses that have not been able to be finished look like. And so what they did was, they measured each and every house, they developed maps which identified different elements of kacha, semi-pakka and pakka according to their design. And then they worked out houses which are individual, those that shared one wall, two walls, and which were clusters. This was not done by an architect. This was done by community women. This pretty picture has been done by an architect. But the original drawings were done, and the concept of this process was done by them. And then based on the footprint, different concepts were put together. And now, when the houses have been rebuilt, this is what some of the insides look like. So, when we started doing this, we realized three things. One is that no two slums are alike. And the ability of giving opportunity to residents to examine who they are and what they do, and to be able to make choices, has to be the basis of co-production of design with the poor. It is something that no professional, whether you are a person who's a demographer, you're a social scientist, you're an architect, you're an engineer, we are shamelessly arrogant. And we feel we have to tell people with our fingers like this about what's good for them and what's bad for them. And what they do is, if they don't like what you do, they just walk away. Which means that whatever was involved in that process has been wasted. It's an important national wastage. We found that when we went to small towns, these are our community leaders also living in slums, you found that poorer households had very low, they had hardly any walls. You see this house, half of it is palm roof. It's got a cement, it's got a aluminum sheet, but the sheet comes right down because they haven't got a wall. So we decided that there were different characteristics of And communities have now begun to document the different types of houses, the different styles in which they are built, what choices do people make, what do they think is the most important ingredient of the house, what happens when houses share walls or don't share walls, why are sometimes the cheapest options the most perpetually upgraded, like these kind of things. They're very cheap, but they have to be changed every year. This particular person has taken wood and then put newspaper, like paper mache on it. And this is my classic favorite. It's just made of tin. It's a small house somewhere in Orissa, and it heats up like an oven in the summer. So the reason I'm showing you these pictures is to look at how communities' incremental housing is different from the incremental housing designed by professionals. Professionals design incremental housing with a clear image of what is going to be at the end. You have a core house, and then you have add-ons, and you have a picture of how it is. So when I speak of incremental housing to professionals, they think that's what we are doing. But poor people don't think like that. Next time you go on the street, you look at the material that people use, and you will know how insecure that person is. A person who is insecure on the pavements of Mumbai will have a house that is collapsible, so that when they know that the demolition squad is coming, they can dismantle the house and hide it. If they feel comfortable, if they feel their politicians are supporting them, the bricks come up. Then the electricity comes in. So what we feel is that understanding the nuances of how people make choices is very critical. You also find that in urban spaces, densification occurs. And there's a very interesting relationship between how public goods of basic amenities, of water, sanitation, sewage, drainage, when should that be put in to produce the best solution for an incremental upgrading? Today, if you go to Dharavi, it's a nightmare to put any infrastructure. But if it's a new slum, it's much easier to do. In a smaller town, it's even easier to do. So how do we produce this sequencing is very critical. Very often, when you have, this is a picture of a lane in Dharavi, you'll find that when there's no external intervention, you have pakka houses which are 5 feet from each other, with staircases coming from outside because the footprint is very small, and all these electrical and TV cables and all storage things coming up in a way so that there's only a 2.5 feet walking space in the middle. So the purpose of my coming to you here is to say, how can people who understand design study the implication of neglect, first of all, by cities on what poor people are doing? And then to identify what are the ways by which interventions at different levels can produce better assets. There's a myth that government is going to produce housing stock for the poor. There's a myth in the new housing policy of government that banks are going to lend money to poor people to build houses. A poor person can't even open a bank account. Where are they going to get loans? And poor people can't afford to repay more than 15 to 20,000 in a period of 2 to 3 years in any case. So if you give them a loan of 4 to 5 lakhs, they're sure to default. So what we are doing is our formal institutions are producing solutions for the poor that are bound to fail and legitimate the fact that it's good not to interfere, or it legitimates the belief that poor people like to live in this dirty and terrible environment. In effect, there is nobody more than a poor woman who aspires for a better home for her child. or for her grandchild. And there is no better network of poor people than slum dwellers themselves, who, if they get a good idea, will scale it up immeasurably. There's an amazing potential for IT to show both municipalities and poor communities what certain design interventions can do for change. And there is immeasurable implication of design on how good public and private space within a home can transform neighborhoods and make them hospitable, make them safe for women and children, and make them communities that poor people can live in. So I invite all of you to explore this. And I thank you for saying that money and consumption doesn't produce happiness. I see energized, content, happy people in slums more than I see in the buildings in which I live in. And any of you who want to explore this with our network, I invite you to come and join us. Thank you.